Welcome to Dependable Flame, where we explore vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacconiana, and other useful mechanisms. Make yourself at home. Today we are going to convert another one of these Bentley Butane lighters, automatic lighter mechanism with the replaceable, disposable butane cartridge. Now, I've done this before. I get questions about this particular project all the time, people wanting me to do it for them or clarify some part of the project, so I just thought I would go ahead and do it again. Got this nice lighter case with the golf scene on it. You just want to unscrew your valve. You're going to end up using this valve later as your chimney, so you can just set that aside for right now. Now we're going to drill completely through that. There was no butane left in this insert. It is possible to have one flare up on you. I doubt that it is likely with that fitting being brass, but it is possible. I'm going to go ahead and punch through this with a smaller bit. 3/32 is what we will use for the chimney, where the wick will go into the fitting. 3/16 is what we're going to end up drilling this piece out to. You can see that just pulled that piece apart from there. I used that in the other video to create sort of a collar, but it's not necessary and we won't be doing it in this one. There you see the rest of it coming on out. So now we are left with just the empty tank. So there is our insert with the butane burner inlet drilled out. We're now going to take this burner, take it apart. That will screw back down on there from the outside. So we're just going to discard this inner portion. Get to our 3/32, we're going to have to drill it out just a little bit. So we will go ahead and thread that back down on there. Get the 3/32 drill in the chuck. Now we are going to just ream this out. Get it centered. That brass should be soft enough, but got a whole lot of force. Get that reamed out, get your burr pushed off. Now let's just see, that could be kind of tight. My hands are a little bit damp. But that's tight from the force of the drill. May have to get a hold of it with something else to loosen it up. At this point, we are basically left with our rudimentary insert, but I'm going to feed some of the cotton down in there first. And it's not going to give you a whole lot of room to work this wadding down in there. We may have to end up thinning this out even a little bit more. So the shape of the insert is going to make it kind of an odd one to re-wick, re-wad, all those kind of things. So this is a job that I don't think you're really going to be able to get perfect. So you just do the best you can. And like I said, it's going to be hard to get that forced back in there. So get as much wadding in there as you can. Get your wick in there. I believe it was our friend Rook Knight who made a fill port in the back here somewhere. It was either Rook Knight or Dead Stick Dave. I can't remember. I think it was Rook. Anyway, that may be a project for our future here. I'm trying to get a good deal of this back into that back hump before I put the wick down, because once we get the wick in there, it's going to be difficult to get the wadding down around the wick into the hole. Again, my thinking may be somewhat flawed, but correct me. Tell me what you guys think. I'm trying to get as much of this down in this way, because then the wick is going to go down this way. There's really no way for us to position it once we get it in there. So I need to get as much cotton as I can, and I don't know that it really needs to reach up to that level, but that is the gist of what we're trying to accomplish here at the moment, before we then put the wick down the hole, fuel it up, and make fire with this formerly disposable cartridge butane fueled lighter. So obviously we're having to break this up into many pieces getting in there. If you ever had to pull it out, it's probably not going to come out all in one piece. Good luck trying to get it all out of there. Okay, and that piece worked in there really nice without backing up on us. Okay, so we've got a pretty good amount of it now behind there. I'm going to put another piece or two. We want to get it as dense as possible so that we can actually use this lighter. We just have fluid sloshing around in there, and that's not going to be the efficient use of that fuel. So my thinking here now, when we put the wick down, and we'll try to force it back this way as much as we can, but the way that the fuel sets in there, if it sinks to the bottom, the more important thing is going to be that the wick goes all the way to the bottom of this, not that it reaches back over here. So we'll try to get the wick forced as much as we can down and through here. A little bit more cotton first though. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go down with the wick now. Now this wick already has the burner valve that we drilled out that is going to be our chimney. That is already on it. So we will go ahead and push this down. Make sure we got the cotton pushed back as much as possible. Make sure we have a clear path. And let's just see how much of this we can get in there. Okay, that should be more than enough. This is all just trial and error. If you start feeding the cotton down and it won't go, then thin it out. I'm calling this a DIY project because it seems to me that this is pretty simple. Pretty much anybody can accomplish this with a little bit of patience. Take our buddy Rook, who wanted a better way to fill it than what we're about to do here in a second, and so he put his own slant on it by drilling out a fill port back here. All kinds of things like that you could do. That is definitely on my project list, something I am eager to do, just not something that I have been able to do just yet. So I've got this really skinny precision screwdriver that I'm using at this point to coax this cotton wadding and maybe a little bit more of the wick down there as well. And I'll make sure and take the slider when we're done. I'm gonna, like I said, I'll feel it here in just a minute and we'll fire it up. But I'll use it, give you guys an update. Let you see how it's working, what kind of fuel efficiency, how often you have to fill it, that kind of thing. And then you can let me know about your projects as well. That cotton's still, it's still feeding down in there all right. It's just you gotta thin that cotton out and use something very thin to push it down in there. See if we can get the wick down in there any further. And definitely. Good deal more of that in there. These little small precision screwdrivers can come in really handy sometimes. Even when you're not using them to drive screws. It's hard to find implements that have long straight shafts like that to reach into. Different lighters or whatever it happens to be that you're working on. Well, that may be about as much as we're going to squeeze in there. That last bit of wadding there is a little bit packed in too tight, and I'm afraid it's going to clog up our entry here. So yeah, we're going to leave that about like that. We will trim the wick after we fill it up with fuel here. And you have to be slow and deliberate with it. And this would definitely be the advantage of having a fill port that was a little bit more convenient, a little bit easier to get to, and a little bit more accepting of fuel. So that will probably be our next project. In addition to taking apart the actuating mechanism to clean out a degraded, powdered, concreted flint. So we will go ahead now, get our chimney down into place. Get that screwed down. It gets it screwed all the way down. Get it in the case. We're going to trim up the wick once we fit the lighter, fit the mechanism in here. Now, this is what works your butane valve, but we're going to use it as a guide for our wick. Let me grab the scissors. Slide our mechanism back down into place here. It looks like everything is in place there. So, like I said, we'll use the wick or that plate that worked the butane valve. We'll use that as a keeper for the wick. See your snuffer, so you don't want to cut it too long. Okay, so get our spare parts picked back up here. Make sure we've got everything in place. Cut it a little bit long. It's going to show that. But it should be fine. There you go, another successful conversion of a Bentley Butane cartridge to a refillable petrol lighter. Until next time.